it's finally time to do something with that Zooz Zen32 Scene Controller that I installed a while back to replace a failed GE light switch. This is going to be a jam-packed video because we're going to be doing a little Node Red, we're going to be doing some home automation or some home assistant automation, and we're going to do some scene control. So let's get started. Now the first thing I want to show you is the Z-Wave control panel that I'm going to use to highlight the settings that we're going to be changing on the Zen32 controller. Now I'm using Z-Wave JS to MQTT add-on, which gives me this nice interface right here. If you're not using this add-on, the changes that you'll be making in the automations in Node Red are still the same on the device. You just won't be able to see them here on this interface. So I'm going to go to node 48, which is my light node, or the Zen32 Scene Controller switch. And I'm most interested down here in configuration V4. These are all the settings that I'm going to be talking about in this video. Specifically, I want to call out the LED indicator button 1. I want to set this to always on. Now you're going to have to do this either through this interface, and all you do is choose from the drop down in the interface and then send the command by pushing the button here. And I'm going to do the same thing for LED indicator button 2 and LED indicator button 3. The reason you want to set those all to always on is because you're always going to display one light color or another. The other settings that we'll be changing today are going to be the LED indicator color for button 1, the LED indicator color for button 2, and the LED indicator color for button 3. Button 1 is going to be for the garage door. Button 2 is going to be for the outside gates, and button 3 is going to be for the door locks. So those are the settings we're going to be changing. Now you'll notice that each one of these has numbers: 48, 112, 07, 48, 112, 08, etc. We are not going to use those numbers. We are going to use the name. So I want to choose for my automations LED indicator color, button 1 in parentheses, button 2, etc. But I do want to know what numbers these colors correspond to. So 0 is white, 1 is blue, 2 is green, and 3 is red. We'll be using the green and red colors today for our automations. So that's just a quick overview of what we're going to be changing. You just need to make sure you go in and either set this through a call service if you don't have the MQT or JS to MQTT add-on. You can do it through a call service in Home Assistant itself, or come in here and set these to always on so you have some sort of light on. Okay, so that's all we need to do on this page, is just talking through it and setting these to always on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our Node Red control panel here. And I've already got some stuff working with the garage door and the door lock. So all I have to do is add on to that. And I'm going to take you through how I configure those nodes. So I'm going to go up to my door actions flow here. And you can see I have all kinds of stuff here. Don't get scared by this. This is all my lighting and things that occur whenever the door is opened or closed or whatnot. So I do have a garage door. This is a current state node. I send it through a switch, whether it's open or closed. And if you hover over these, you'll see which one is which. If it's closed, all these paths are followed. And one of the paths I've added here is the Zooz light. So we'll set it to either red or green. And this is a pretty straightforward setup here. I'm just going to show you how I configure the node. And all you have to do to get the node by is take this current state and drag it over here and then add it. I gave it a name called Set Zooz Light to Red. I chose the Home Assistant server that I'm actually talking to. And since this is Node Red as an add-on, I'm just using the Node Red add-on to talk to my Home Assistant server. The domain is going to be Z-Wave JS because we're going to be setting a configuration parameter, and we want to make sure we're doing that under the Z-Wave JS domain. The service we're going to call is set config parameter, and we can leave area and device blank. The entity is actually the name of the Zen32 Scene Controller. I actually call this back porch new. The important part here is the parameter or the data we're sending to it. I'm going to click on these 3 dots right here, and we'll see what this parameter looks like. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that we're going to be using the name. So if we look over here in the control panel, you're going to be setting the LED indicator color button 1 to a specific value. So the parameter here is LED indicator button 1, and the value is going to be 3, and the value 3, of course, is going to be red. So what that means is if the garage door is open, I want the color of that light to turn red. So we're done with that one. And that's all you have to do. And you attach it from here to wherever you want to set this node. And the same thing occurs for the light to green. And because I only have one kind of binary operation here, it's either on or off, open or closed. That's all we have to do with this one. So all of the parameters are the same here. The only difference now is that I'm setting the value to 2 instead of to 3. So you can see that here, 2 is going to be green, and again, 3 is red. So I want it to go back to green when the door is closed. So what I have here is garage door open, set the light to red, garage door closed, set the light to green. And every time you open the garage door, that light will turn red on the Zen32 Scene Controller button 1, and it will turn green on button 1 when the door is closed. All right, let's move right into the gate actions. And we'll come over to gate actions. It's exactly the same kind of thing that we did before. Some of your logic at the beginning here will be different. So, but that's just because it's a different flow. So the gate is open, and I'm going to just take this open on, which is what it is, and I'm going to set this to button 2 to red. So everything here is the same as the garage door opening, same entity. The only difference is we are now indicating button 2 here instead of button 1. And we'll set the value to 3 for red and value to 2 for closed. And I only do this once. I have 2 gates, but I only have to do it one time because I need to know if either one of the gates is open or closed. So if it opens a gate, we'll see it here, and it closes a gate, we'll see it here. Now, if both gates are open and you close one, you don't want it to set back to green. So this logic is actually invalid, but in my mind for today, for simplicity, I'm going to assume that only one gate is ever opened and then closed at the same time. So later on, I'll probably need to come back and make sure that there's some logic in here to deal with having one gate open and closed, but the other gate's still open. And I talk about that in the door locks, but I'm going to do that a little bit differently here in a minute. So that's our indicator for button 2. What happens if the garage door is open and you see it open on the switch? I don't want to have to walk back up to the front door or the garage door and close it. I want to be able to do it from the switch. And I'm going to show you how we do that now. This involves looking at some Z-Wave JS events, determining what the scene is, and then acting on that. Before we do the automation though, we need to go back and look at something else. We need to make sure we understand what occurs whenever that button is pressed on the Zooz Scene Controller. So I'm going to go to Developer Tools over here. I'm going to click on Events. And you notice that we have a whole bunch of listeners over here on the right side. I am most interested today in looking at Z-Wave JS value notification. And I want to listen to all of the events that go on there. So I'm going to type that in here, Z-Wave JS value notifications, and make sure you spell it right, and click on Start Listening. Now what I want to do is I want to press that button, and I'm going to do 3 button presses in quick succession, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. So as I push those 3 buttons, you'll see a value pop up here. So let me go ahead and press that button 3 times, and we'll watch the value pop up here. Okay, so I've pressed the button 3 times or pressed button 1 3 times on the scene controller. And you can see now that I have an event that has popped up. Let me go ahead and stop the listening here. And by the way, you have to make sure you spell this exactly as it shows over here, or you're not going to be able to get an event. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff that pops up in this block of data that came across. There are only a few things you need to worry about here. And all we're trying to do is be able to have Home Assistant recognize that that button was pressed 3 times in this case, and it was that specific device the button was pressed on. You could have multiple scene controllers around your house or whatever, and you want to make sure you're referencing the correct scene controller. So in this case, what I'm most interested in is the node ID, the device ID, the label, and the value. So node ID 48, device ID is this long number right here. And I include this device ID just in case the node ID for some reason changes, then the device ID will remain the same. The label is going to be scene 001, and the value is key pressed 3 times. Now, the reason I do key pressed 3 times is because I don't want someone to come over there and push the big button, which is the light switch, and accidentally push the little button and cause the garage door to close if it's supposed to be open. I want to deliver it 3 presses within a short amount of time for it to work. It keeps you from accidentally pressing the button if you hit the wrong one while turning on the lights or turning off the lights. So I give it a 3 press for that. Okay, so you take this data right here, and we're going to create an automation off of that data. So make sure you copy this down somewhere so you know what it is. I've already built the automation, so I'm going to show you how that was done. So I'm going to go into Configuration Automations. This one's close garage door from backdoor Zooz, because I'm terrible at naming things. And let's just go through that. You can do this in the UI, so it's super simple to do. Close garage door from backdoor is the name. You can give it an optional description. Enable is enabled, of course. And then what you want to do is you want to have a trigger type of event. This is how all scene controllers basically work in Home Assistant. Let me blow it up a little bit for you. There you go. And again, remember the values that I talked about. First of all, the event type is Z-Wave JS value notification. You have to type that in exact. Your event data needs to be made up of unique identifiers for that particular device and particular action that you did. So in this case, the label is scene 001, the node ID is 48, the device ID is this device right here, and the value that occurred in that packet was key pressed 3 times. So anytime that these 4 items match on the event bus, the Z-Wave event bus, it's going to fire off this particular automation. So you could add as many things in here as you want to make it very unique, but I think this is plenty. Okay, so what's the action we're going to do? We're going to call a service, cover, close cover, which is closing the garage door, and the entity is going to be garage door, my garage door opener. And that's it. You go in there, you press the button 3 times, it IDs that packet with this information and closes the garage door. Simple as that. Now, if you wanted to do a close or open the garage door with the same switch, you would create an automation that would actually have, let's say we pressed it 2 times. You could push that key press value 2x here, and then instead of saying close cover, you could say open the cover, or cover open cover. Wow, that's hard to say. So anyway, that's the automation for that. So you can get the notification on the Zen32 Scene Controller with the light saying, okay, it's red. That means the garage door is open. Press it 3 times, and then the garage door closes. Simple, simple, simple. Okay, that is the garage door stuff, and then the gate stuff. Let's talk about one more. So for button 3, we're going to have button 3 tied to the door locks. And remember how I talked about the gate? If one gate was open and then you close it, but the other one was still open, it would still turn green. Well, the door locks, I want to make sure that those door locks don't turn green unless both locks are locked. So I do all of this through an automation. So let's go over here and let's go down to what I call the Zooz button 3 light. And we're going to edit this one. I'm going to show you step by step how this is done. This is a little more complicated because we're going to use trigger IDs, and we're going to use for our action, we're going to start with a choose type action. So I call this one Zooz button 3 light, and it's duplicate because I copied it from something I was playing with earlier. No optional description. So we're going to have 4 triggers today. We're not going to use them all at the same time. We're going to use them in conjunction with some of the conditions down below. So my first trigger is backdoor unlocked. It's my entity, my backdoor, and then it's going to go to an unlocked state. Now the difference is I come up here and I edit trigger ID, and I assign the trigger ID. By default, this trigger ID is not exposed in this UI. You have to actually come up here and click on edit trigger ID, or you won't see that. It's immediate, so I don't care about setting a time. The same thing's going to be set for front door unlocked. I'm going to use the entity for the front door, set it to state unlocked, or watch for state unlocked, and then of course edit the trigger ID and put it right here. I will do both for back door and front door locked, the same thing. The difference is this will be locked and the trigger ID name will be slightly different, locked versus unlocked. And again, front door will do the same thing. All right, so you're setting the triggers for locked and unlocked for both of the door locks. So those will be the triggers that actually cause the rest of this automation to run. So we're going to go into actions. We're skipping the conditions right now because our actions are going to contain the conditions. So we're going to choose an action type of choose. We're going to use that as the action type. And this is going to be under option 1, condition 1 will be an OR condition. This is what we're going to do to set the Zooz switch or the Zooz light to red, meaning one of the locks is unlocked. So all I need for this one is either one of these. So or either the back door is unlocked or the front door is unlocked. If either one of these triggers occur, then it's going to fire off this action, which is a call service action. We're going to set the config parameter just like we did in Node-RED. It's zwave.js set config parameter as the service. The entity is going to be that switch that's back there. That's the Zen32 Scene Controller. We're going to set the full name or the parameter as the full name of that particular parameter, not the ID itself. So LED indicator color button 3, and we're going to set the value to 3, and again, that value is red. So if either one of the door locks unlocks, then the switch or the light will turn red. All right, so that's option 1 for this automation. Option 2 is what we're going to do to set the light green, but we've got some parameters that need to be satisfied first, or some conditions that need to be set first. Again, this is going to start with an OR condition, and it's going to be either the back door or the front door is locked. So either one of those things occur, either one of those triggers, then we're going to move on to our next condition, which is an AND condition. So first, either one of these is locked. So this is this or this. Now the next one requires us to look at the state of the locks. So I can't use the trigger here. I have to use the actual state of the locks. So I'm going to say condition type is state. On the front door lock has to be locked, and because we're using and here, the state of the back door lock has to be locked as well. And if both of those conditions are true, then we complete the action here, which is a call service. Again, setting the configuration parameter for LED indicator button 3 on the back porch new Zen32 Scene Controller switch. We're going to set it to a value of 2, which is green. In the UI, that's what it looks like, and it's very easy to do that in the UI. Let me show you the YAML. You don't have to do anything in YAML. I just want to show you this for ease of display. So again, we have 4 triggers: the back door and front door unlocked, and the back door and front door locked. Those are our 4 triggers. Condition option 1 is an OR. Either one of these doors are unlocked or locks are unlocked. We call this service, which is to set the color of the switch or the button to 3 red, okay, on that particular entity. The second condition is an OR condition followed by an AND condition. So either one of these locks, this lock or this lock, are locked. We need to see if both locks are in the locked state. If that is true, then it will go down here and it will set LED indicator color button 3 to value 2, which is green on this back porch new entity. It looks complicated, but it really isn't when you think about it. And if you want to check and see if this stuff is actually working, what you can do is go back over here and go to the automation. You can either do it from the automation editing screen or from here and click on Show Trace, which is debug information here. And you can go through and see how this stuff has worked. So right now we can follow along here. This right now is the door unlocked. So you can see here, state, lock, backdoor lock was unlocked. Then it goes to the decision here. And it goes through these parameters. And it chooses the fact that condition 0 is true. And condition result is true for this condition. And that's both of these are unlocked. Or I'm sorry, this one of these 2 is unlocked. So this is a simple one where if you unlock one of the 2 doors, it's going to fire off this change and change it here. If you find, let's find one where we lock the door. This is where the back door was locked. And we look at this decision tree here. It goes this direction. And we look again to see if all of these conditions are true. So this condition is true. One of the doors is locked. This condition is also true, meaning both doors are locked. And so it goes ahead and sets the indicator on the switch to, or the button to green, value 2. So this is a way you can trace through and see what's going on in the automations. A really awesome feature to do here. So that's it, really. If you look at the scene controllers, they're really awesome things you can do. There's so many different options on that scene controller. I did a 3 times button press. You can do a single, double, 3. I don't even know how far up it goes, but you can have multiple button presses. Now, if you can remember everything that those buttons do, that's great. You can do a lot of stuff with those scene controllers, a lot of indications, a lot of control of devices. On button 3, I could do a triple press on button 3 as well and have it lock both of those inside doors. I just haven't built that out yet, but I probably will, because I want to be able to go back there and say, okay, one of the doors is unlocked, 3 presses, and it locks my doors for me. You could also set the alarm from this thing. You can turn on all your lights if you want to come in that door and hit a button, like say button 4 would be enable or turn on all lights. You would do the same kind of scene control, set up an automation, and then on that automation, you would act on the entities, maybe turning on all light switches or turning on certain lights or whatever you want to do. If you have any questions, drop those down below here. You can also talk to me in Discord as well. Make sure you're using one of the general or public channels in Discord. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button as well. And if you would like to join the channel, help support what I do, hit that join button down below here as well. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.